imagine this. You're interested in the religion, you're interested in Islam, but there's just one thing. There's something you heard about it that bothers you, something that seems far too heinous about it, something that troubles you, that makes you wonder, how could it be? How could this rule exist? It seems cruel, it seems barbaric, it seems unjust. I mean, they want me to convert to the religion, but they're saying that nobody else can leave it. So how's that? So let me ask this Muslim guy. And here we have a video of Joshua. He calls in and he asks the Muslim lantern about the apostasy law. He wants to know how it is that you could be executed for leaving the religion. It's a very fair question. Now, I don't want to fault Muslim lantern because he was very honest here. He tried his best to justify it, didn't beat around the bush. He said it plainly and clearly. This is what happens if you leave the religion. Now, the funny thing is, wait until you see, after telling him this, he's going to ask him, so why don't you become Muslim now? It's actually quite hilarious. Let's get into it. Let's see how Muslim Lantern responds to Joshua and how he justifies this cruel and barbaric law. So here we are. I'm your friendly ex-Muslim. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, if you like the content, you're interested in critical analysis on Islam, do subscribe. Let's take a look and see what Joshua said now.
Yeah, I bumped into this thing regarding the apostasy laws, and it's just kind of threw me off a little bit.
Have a Muslim family?
No, my parents are Hindu.
Your parents are Hindu. Okay, so how are you? You good?
I'm a bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie, but
Okay,
I'm good.
No need to be nervous. Okay, so what is your question?
I only have one question so far, and it's just regarding the apostasy laws that are in Islam. I think because basically I've been looking into Islam. I'd say right now I'm an agnostic, but I've looked into Christianity, Hinduism. But in my personal opinion, I really feel like I'm leaning towards Islam right now. I believe that out of all the religions out there, this has to be the true one, right? I've been reading the Quran, finished the 8th chapter yesterday. Hopefully I can start the 9th one tonight. I've started reading the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. I've got the seal nectar on me.
Okay.
Right here. So I've been trying to get into it. But yeah, I bumped into this thing regarding the apostasy laws, and it's just kind of threw me off a little bit because in one of the hadiths, I think it was Sahih al-Bukhari 6922, whoever changed his Islamic religion, then kill him. It was stated that that's what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. But then I read the Quran because I've read Surah Al-Baqarah already, the 2nd chapter, and it says...
Now, before you go on and you interpret the Quran using chapter 2, verse 256.
So if you look at the situation here, you have this sincere truth seeker, as I see it, this young man, Joshua, and he's trying to get to the bottom of things. He started reading the Quran, he's looking for guidance. I mean, this is a common thing that young men do and young women do. They're looking for guidance. They're looking to see, am I on the right path, right? And I went through the same thing myself around the same age of 18, 19, 20, which I assume he is. I'm not sure. And you can see that he's really trying. He's being respectful. He's hoping that Muslim Lantern is going to give him an out. He's going to give him a way to justify the cognitive dissonance because he's saying he likes the religion, but he's also seeing this like awful thing. And you can see that the way he's already framed it, he said, well, the hadith, it troubled him. But then, Quran says, and so I think he's really hoping that he's going to tell him that, well, the Quran actually takes precedence. Don't worry about that hadith. That context was different. He's probably hoping to hear something like that. And obviously he trusts this guy and he's hoping that he gives him an answer that will satisfy him.
There's no compulsion in religion, because I know where you're going exactly. Before you interpret Quran on our behalf, you can ask a question, because if you're not a Muslim, then you don't understand the Islamic text, right? So when the Quran says,
so he's saying you're not a Muslim and you don't understand the Islamic text, so why are you interpreting the Islamic text? How do you expect him to read the Quran and understand it if he's not allowed to interpret it. You do realize, Mr. Muslim Lantern, I don't know your real name, that whenever you read a book, you are interpreting that book. What does interpretation mean? It means that you are taking the text and digesting it in your brain into meaning. That's what interpretation is. You cannot read anything without interpreting it. That's the process of understanding, unless you're just reading it like a pet, like when you have, for example, Indonesians or Pakistanis that don't speak the language and they're reading the Quran in Arabic, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, like that's not interpretation, sure. But if you want to learn something, if you want to get the meaning, so I don't know why he's like complaining to him that, oh, why did you interpret it? Well, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to understand it. How can you fault him for that?
There's no compulsion in religion. This is prior to accepting the message.
All right.
So I cannot compel you to accept Islam. So I cannot compel someone to accept Islam. And the reason of revelation of this verse is that there is a man who came to the Prophet ﷺ. He accepted Islam and his 2 children were Christian. Then he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, they're refusing Islam. Should I force them to accept Islam? And the Prophet said to him, no. So you cannot force someone who is a non-Muslim to enter into Islam. But once someone enters into Islam.
So you can't force a non-Muslim to enter in Islam except by jihad. So he forgot that point. Actually, the whole point of jihad is to convert people and to make them Muslim and to take the lands. And that process, you are legitimately in Islam allowed to convert people, forcibly convert them. Of course, they have an option to just fight, if you even call that an option, right? Like to be slaughtered, right? Basically, right? If that's an option, then yeah, you don't have to. That's not compulsion, but that is compulsion. That's compulsion by the sword, right? But he didn't mention that here. But anyways, that's a different context.
Islam, there's obligations and responsibilities after making that choice. So the hadith you're referring to is someone, he chose to accept Islam willingly, then that choice that he made has obligations and rulings. So we don't understand there's no compulsion, meaning you cannot compel anything on anyone at all. That's not the case in Islam, because I can compel you to punish you if you steal in Islam.
So he's missed another major point here, which is that he's saying once you choose to accept Islam, then you have to follow it. It's interesting. Did all of the billions of Muslims that exist in the world today, did they all choose to be Muslim? Did they have a ceremony when they were 18 or 19, when they reached adulthood, where they were told, now it's your choice. I raised you without the religion and now I'm going to give you an option. Do you want to become Muslim? Or even if they were raised as Muslims and then they were given a choice at like when they reach adulthood that, okay, look, do you really want to follow this religion? If you don't, that's fine, right? That's okay. No. All of the Muslims that are born Muslim, they have no choice, but the same apostasy law applies to them. So this is not only for people that convert to the religion. This is for anyone that's Muslim, period, whether they're born Muslim or converted to the religion. They are compelled to stay in the religion according to the Islamic law.
I can punish you if you commit certain sins in Islam, in an Islamic law. I can compel you, force you to do certain things by law under Islamic State. So that's not a correct understanding of the verse. Now, regarding that ruling, let me just clarify and explain this issue, because I don't believe I explained this issue before on my channel. So let me go in depth into explaining this issue, the idea of apostasy. Now, first, I want to ask you this thing. Do you believe in democracy?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So you think democracy is a good thing?
It's not something I've thought about a lot.
It's not a test. I'm not testing you. But generally, do people view, non-Muslims, they generally view democracy as a good thing, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is democracy? Democracy is that the majority choose the ruler, and the rules are applied in the country based on what the majority chose, right? So if the majority of the Muslims choose a law in their land, if you leave Islam in our country, you will be punished. You will have a capital punishment. Why is that a problem if you believe in democracy? Since the majority chose that.
That is a good point, yeah.
Yeah,
So this is a very foolish point. Like he's trying to say, if the majority chose something unjust, then it's okay because it's a democracy? No, it's not okay. That's how democracy works. Democracy works that there's always different groups and different people arguing for different points. So we can argue that these certain rules that exist, even under democracy, are not good rules. We can argue, especially if the rule was that crazy that you kill someone for leaving the religion. Yeah, well, of course, that is something that other people in the democracy have every right to question. Why would it be the case that only one specific religion has this rule and none of the other ones? Imagine a world where every single religion or every single country had this rule. What about freedom of expression in religion? What about human dignity? What about the right to choose for yourself how you want to live your life? Why should anyone be compelled? I mean, the fact that he was saying on one hand, oh, I can't compel you if you're not Muslim, but once you're Muslim, I can compel you to stay Muslim. How does that make any sense at all? It's almost like a cult. I mean, that's what it sounds like. Once you enter, you can't leave. Doesn't matter whether the majority decided on that. Would he agree, according to his own logic, that if a majority decided that anyone that becomes Muslim had to be executed, the same way he's saying anyone that leaves Islam had to be executed, would that be okay? Does he think that's okay just because? No, of course not. It's a crazy rule, and even Muslims themselves are confused by how could it be, how could this rule be so harsh? What would be the point of this when at the end of the day, this is everyone's free to decide for themselves. How is it that you would use violence in order to keep people in your religion? How is it that you will deny them the freedom of belief? You would deny them their own personal autonomy. You would deny them the human right. And you are ultimately deciding for them. How is that valuable to God? How is it valuable to God that someone stays a Muslim even though they are not convinced? None of this makes sense unless you're in a cult. That's the only reason why this would make sense. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
So if you're a person who believes in democracy, the last thing I want to hear from the liberals who believe in democracy, I'm not saying you, I'm saying generally liberals, right? The last thing I want to hear from the liberals who believe in democracy is to come and complain about a law that can only be applied in Islamic State, because the law of someone leaving his religion being punished can only be applied in a Sharia state.
So again, very stupid point. He mentioned liberals. Liberals would not be okay with this. Liberals, dude, I feel like saying, how dumb are you to make a point like this? Since when did liberals say whatever is voted in a democracy is right? Even in America, there's two big parties, Democrats and Republicans, right? If some of those rules that came about, for example, the abortion law, banning abortion, even if it came about under democracy, do you think liberals would be like, oh yeah, that's okay to take away the personal autonomy of women in order to make their own decision about their bodies? Of course not. I gotta ask, how dumb are you to make this point? Does he not understand that liberals are one part of a democracy, and sometimes under democracy you have rules which are illiberal, rules that take away fundamental rights of people? That's like saying, oh, liberals are okay with it because the rule came about because of a majority or because of no. It's really silly for him to it's such a straw man right now. It's so stupid, the point he just made.
And within a Sharia state, the leader becomes the leader after the group of people called Ahlul Hill wal Aqd. There is a system that happens and they choose the leader. So if the majority agree with the leader, agree with the law, then if you are someone who believes in democracy, you shouldn't have any issues with the law of apostasy. That's the first thing I'm going to say.
So this is quite a hilarious point again, because he brought up something that is quite problematic under Islamic law. How is the ruler chosen? He said it's a certain group of people that choose the next leader. How does that make sense, right? According to Islamic law, there's no real one way to do things, because Muhammad died without picking a leader. So what happened was a bunch of companions, right? They decided amongst themselves, and that's where you had the whole Shia-Sunni conflict started, right? This whole divide happened because there was no clear method specified. So, Sunnis will say that this select group of people, who the hell are these select group of people? They get to decide who the next leader is? And if you don't agree, then what? The mess that happened when Muhammad died, if you read about it, it was such a disaster. You had Ali, right? Who is the cousin of the Prophet and his son-in-law, fighting Aisha, his wife. What a disaster. And then you have this entire sect, right? This entire schism that created two sects, Shia and Sunni, right? There's no agreement on how to select a leader. So this is completely stupid. But anyways, some of them say the process of selecting the caliph is done by, in the first example was influential companions. But then when the influential companions are done, who gets to decide, right? Which is why the caliphate eventually ended up becoming a dynasty, a kingdom, right? With Muawiyah, it became a dynasty, right? So There's no real one way. And again, this just shows you how messed up Islam is, right? And he kind of glossed over that. But I'm pointing it out because it's a major flaw in the religion.
This is just a response from a secular point of view, right? From an Islamic point of view, as I said, this can only be applied by the leader. Now, the second thing is this: how can I know that someone left his religion?
Well, I'm gonna assume if he was being vocal about it, like if he went on to
if he's not, can I know?
No, if he's doing it behind closed doors, not really.
No one can know. So the only way I can know you left Islam is that you come and you tell me you left Islam.
Yeah.
The only way a Muslim or a state can establish that an individual has left the fold of Islam is for that individual to come himself and declare clearly in the public that he left the religion of Islam. So now he's not just...
Well, that's not true. Someone could snitch on him. Someone could overhear him in his house. He might be having a phone call that was tapped. He could be saying things that imply he's not Muslim. He doesn't necessarily have to say he doesn't believe. He could even question any of the edicts of Islam. He could say, well, let's say, for example, like, and you have things like this happen. People will question, well, oh, why does apostasy law make sense, right? And that could be considered blasphemy to question. I mean, the whole idea of blasphemy, people are lynched and mobbed and, you know, killed for even questioning the religion, right? Even questioning some of the articles of faith. Even if I have heard, even if you make fun of beard because beard is a symbol of Islam, you could be considered an apostate for that, a blasphemer, right? So no, it's not the case that someone has to go out publicly, hey, I'm not a Muslim anymore. No, they don't have to do that. And even if they wanted to do that, why shouldn't they be allowed to do that? People are going around all the time saying, hey, I converted to Islam. Hey, I converted to Islam. They do that all the time. Hey, let me make a YouTube channel. Let me talk about my journey to Islam. So that's okay, but this is not okay. What kind of one-sided bullshit is this?
Leaving Islam, now he is inciting other people to leave Islam as well, because when he declares something out loud to other individuals, then that thing can become a habit for other people or an...
Well, he's not necessarily inciting anyone to do anything. He's just sharing, or maybe he's just questioning. Like, simply questioning doesn't mean you're inciting anyone to do anything. You're just asking people, like, how does this make sense? I don't understand this. Not necessarily inciting, but again, the assumption is that this is a bad thing. It's a bad thing for someone to incite people to leave Islam, but it's a good thing for people to incite others to join Islam? Interesting. I'm seeing a lot of cult-like thinking here.
Easy thing for other people to also do, because he did it, I can do it too. And then when you have multiple individuals rioting and joining each other, leaving Islam, okay, we're not...
Did he just say rioting? We're going to start a riot. Like, is that how people leave Islam? They go out and they start rioting, smashing windows. Oh, I'm not Muslim anymore. I smash windows. So, like, what is this, like, nonsense? That's not how it happens, man. Like, what is this over exaggeration here?
Not going to follow Islamic Sharia now because we left Islam. You don't tell me not to drink. You don't tell me not to steal. And you are under a Sharia state, and you will have a group of people who will cause revolution, corruption, and killing and stealing and murdering when they do it.
Whoa! That escalated quickly. Did he just say, if you have a bunch of people leaving Islam, you're gonna have murdering, theft, and violence? Like, first of all, he just talked about murdering the guy that left Islam. Legitimately on his own free will left Islam. He's going to be murdered. But apparently the reason for stopping that is because there's going to be riots, violence, murder, chaos, mayhem. Like, what does he think like ex-Muslims are doing? They're going to be out there like devil spawn, like, you know what I mean, like murdering people and like what the hell is this? What kind of like weak ass straw man justifications is he making up here? That's not what happens, dude. This is not what happens. There's no revolution. Like, this is like such a made up, contrived example to make his point. It's just hilarious. Like, this guy is wait until after he says all this and he asks the guy, so why don't you become Muslim? Let's see what happens.
So I cannot know that someone left Islam except if he declares he left Islam. The second thing is, in Islam, if a person declares that he left Islam, there is a period of repentance. So the state brings...
The view on Joshua's face right now is like, hello darkness, my old friend. It's exactly that meme. It's like the eyes have glazed over. It's just like, oh my god, what have I gotten into? Why did I ask this question? Anyways.
brings him and say to him, repent or you will be punished. And that period can go up to 20 days or can be just 3 days, but not less than 3 days. They will say to him, repent or you will be punished. So now he has a choice to lie and say, oh yeah, I came back to Islam.
So he he gets 3 days. That's all the time he gets. That's all the time he needs, apparently. So apparently when he wasn't Muslim, he had all the time in the world to decide until he died. But once he becomes Muslim and he leaves Islam, he only gets 3 days or potentially 23 days. Now, why is there 2 different options? I don't know. It's because it's Islam, okay? These things don't have to make sense. It's not 3 days. It's not 23 days. It's 3 plus 20. Sometimes 3, sometimes plus 20. Oh, man.
In essence, the only way that capital punishment is applied on you in Islam is if you choose to be killed.
So now he's saying you can choose to lie. So we've gone from the fact that you can't talk about it publicly. Now you have to lie and say that you're actually a Muslim, right? He's saying that you're choosing to be killed. What the heck is this guy saying? You're choosing to be killed? No, you're choosing to live your life and to follow the thing that you actually believe in, which, to be frank, nobody can choose what they believe in. You either believe in something or you don't. If you don't believe in it, then let's see what he says.
That's the only way you can be punished Islamically with that punishment of apostasy, if you choose to be killed. Otherwise, you can lie and say, I became a Muslim, and then you will become what we call a munafiq. A munafiq is a hypocrite, someone who shows belief and hides disbelief. And then these people existed at the time of the Prophet Muhammad.
So interestingly, the reason for the munafiq, the hypocrites, is because of Islam. Islam doesn't allow people to be themselves, to decide for themselves, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience. So guess what? They have to lie, and this creates hypocrisy, right? As it's called, a hypocrite. It's not even really a hypocrite. It's someone that is trying to preserve their life in a situation where they have no option. And the funny thing is, under Islam, in Islamic law, you can lie and pretend that you left Islam so that you don't get harmed, right? Now, the funny thing is, he's saying the same thing in reverse now. He's saying that you should lie and pretend to be a Muslim. Well, that's just nuts that this whole system is so bad that this is what it comes down to, that he's telling you that you should lie. Is this the type of system you'd want to choose to live your life in?
They were not punished. Even though the Prophet had a list of all of the hypocrites at his time, he did not punish them because they showed outwardly that they were believers. So in the community, do you show that we are believers, we believe in Allah, we're Muslims? Whatever they hide and they conceal in their heart is a punishment for them in the afterlife and the day of judgment. But if someone...
So this is what you want. You want a community of people that are forced to lie and pretend to be something they're not. And you think this is a good thing? Does he even hear himself? Or is he just like a brainwashed robot that's just spouting Islamic nonsense? At the end of the day, you have to wonder, does this sound good to him in his head, what he's saying?
Someone were to come out loud publicly and declare that he left Islam, then we have this process that he was asked to repentance. If he doesn't repent, then he's punished capital punishment. And in reality, that will only happen if he chooses to die. It's a very simple thing, and there is a narration of 2 of the companions of the Prophet, Mu'adh and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Mu'adh came to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari and he saw him with a Jewish person. He said, who is this? He says, a Jew who accepted Islam and left Islam. And Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was over 20 days, he'd been trying to bring him back to Islam. So he didn't chop his head off. He was trying to bring him to Islam, right? He was trying to talk to him, bring him back to Islam. And then Mu'adh ibn Jabal said that he had enough now. I'm not going to get off my camel unless that person is punished. Why? Because he's had over 20 days of him being warned and been trying to bring him to Islam and clearing any of his doubts. Maybe it's because of ignorance he left Islam or something like this, right? So Islamically, there is nothing more just than Islam. And as I said...
So he just said, oh, he didn't chop off his head. But isn't that what happened at the end of the story? He was punished. What does that mean, he was punished? So he's saying, oh, he gave him 20 days. Oh, he's such a nice guy. He gave him 20 days to call him back to Islam. And then he said, I'm not going to get off my donkey or whatever until he's punished, meaning he's executed. Isn't that interesting? The guy was so... Imagine living your life in such a way that someone else's decision angers you so much that you will demand that they are killed for simply leaving the religion. Imagine that. Guy was a Jew. He became Muslim. He realized Islam wasn't for him. But apparently, you can't leave.
You cannot be punished.
Oh, so hilarious. He just said Islam is the most just religion. He's saying all this, and then he's saying Islam is the most just religion. I wonder if these guys even listen to themselves and realize just how stupid they sound.
Something like this, right? So Islamically, there is nothing more just than Islam. And as I said, you cannot be punished by the law of apostasy unless you choose yourself to be killed. Because you have to ignore claiming that, okay, I came back to Islam. Is that clear now?
Yeah.
So he's saying unless you choose to be punished. So what he means is unless you choose to, unless you choose the alternative, which is lie, pretend you're Muslim, keep it to yourself, don't talk about leaving Islam, don't question it publicly, don't do anything against Islam. If you do all of this, basically, you're not living your life at this point, right? You're a zombie. You're a zombie that's like, you're probably going to be depressed, unhappy, miserable. You have no autonomy, no decision-making power. You have to pretend like you're a Muslim. You have to be a hypocrite. And after all that, you chose, but you didn't choose. You chose to be executed. He's saying either you do this or you chose to be executed. How is that a choice? It's the stupidest thing this guy is saying.
Yeah, that clears up a lot. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. That's the only question you have?
Yeah, that was the only question I had, really and truly.
No problem.
I appreciate it because it was bugging me for a while.
And keep reading and researching, and if you've got any questions, you're welcome to come back.
100%. And I also, before I hop off, I just wanted to say thank you a lot for your content, because Islam has helped me out a lot in terms of, I'm not a Muslim yet, but I found a lot of peace in it. I've noticed I'm becoming a better person. I've started respecting my parents more. I've stopped drinking. I know I'm not a Muslim yet, but I've already felt.
So why don't take the step and accept Islam then?
Because I mean, it's only been like 3 months since I started looking into it, and I just don't know. I don't want it to be a thing of where, I take my shahada.
He doesn't want it to be a thing of, as he just found out, he takes his shahada. Sorry, I interrupted him. Let's see what he says.
And then, I just don't know. I don't want it to be a thing of where, I take my shahada and then another problem crops up tomorrow, something else that I doubt about Islam, and then...
No, but this is not a healthy mentality to have, I would say. Because to think maybe something will come, this is just following conjecture, Allah in the Quran clearly says...
Like, the guy's gonna lecture him about not rushing into the religion after he just told him what's going to happen if he has... and if he wants to leave it. Imagine, like... I just can't believe what I'm hearing here. What are these people that have no self-awareness? What is he saying? And now he's gonna lecture the guy and talk down to him about not converting. Let's hear how this insanity here.
That about the disbelievers, they only follow conjecture. So it's not a good thing to just follow conjecture, right? If I have complete evidence that something makes sense in this point of time, I should follow it. Unless I come across something, then I start asking questions. But generally, if everything makes sense to me, then I should stick to that thing that makes sense to me. I'm not going to push you to do it, but I think you're there. If it makes sense to you, then you should do it. Like,
the funny thing is, based on, if I was in his shoes, based on what I've heard, the safer thing to do would be to secretly become Muslim, not publicly become Muslim. Because if you secretly become Muslim, hey, well, you can do whatever you want and no one's going to kill you if you change your mind. But if you go the other way, dude, you only got 20 days, right, to come back and to pretend, and now your entire life you have to pretend to be a Muslim. I mean, what kind of decision would that be, to rush into that? Yet he's telling them that, oh, you're only following conjecture and this and that. That you're ready to become Muslim. Oh dear.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's helped me out a lot, as I said, as a person. But yeah, thank you, because your content that you post has really kind of answered a lot of questions. I saw you do the emotional shahada with that person, and I resonated with that video a lot. There are certain questions I had. Will I be forgiven? I make sins. I still make mistakes. And so many things that not just you, but other Dawah YouTubers have said. It's helped me out a lot. And I really...
Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, I can see you're there, And if you ever want to come back and take your shahada, I'm happy to.
No, but honestly, man, like, I can't stress it enough. Thank you so much.
No problem. My pleasure,
you have helped me out so much. Before Islam, I was so lost, brother. I was depressed. I was in a bad place. And now I'm getting better.
May Allah accept from me.
I think, obviously, it all goes to Allah. He guides who He wills. But
so, interestingly, I mean, unfortunately, this guy was feeling depressed, sad, looking for guidance. And he found some form of spirituality which exists in Islam. I mean, Islam is one system that gives you some spirituality. And unfortunately for him, the one he chose, I mean, he could have gone to other, like mindfulness or something, less harmful systems. He found one of the worst systems out there, right? Which has so much toxic, negative, hateful energy in it. And it's just unfortunate that this is what he landed on, right, out of all the religions. And it's true that you can get a sense of peace by reading some of the things in the Quran. I mean, a lot of it is just like awful. Like when I read the Quran now, I don't get any sort of peace or guide. It's just like, it's awful. It's just like constantly talking about, you know, hell and punishing disbelievers. And like, you can see the mind that wrote this, right? When you look at it objectively, it's like a deranged mind, right? The person who wrote this is really troubled. Like, he's cursing his uncle for doing this and that, and, you know, damning him to hell, and this person and that person and these disbelievers and these hypocrites, and you know, getting his personal wishes done. So I also wish Joshua well. I think that he'd be better off without Islam, and, you know, find another version, a form of spirituality that will bring him peace and that will bring him happiness. And I don't think Islam is the best one. Of course, it's ultimately his decision. I would be thinking 100 times, 1,000 times, because he found out like a red flag, what we call a red flag, right? It's like she's a 10, but she has an axe under her bed or something like that. Like that's the situation. Like he's seeing a system. He's dating this girl that he looks really attractive, but there's something he found about her that's troubling, right? You know what I'm saying? Like there's something really bad. And this is the situation with Islam. Like, you know, on the surface, like, it appeals to a lot of people. Oh, one God, brotherhood, you know, all of this stuff about, you know, worshiping God alone and no partners and whatever, right? And the true religion and going to heaven and all of this. And then you start to dig into it and you start to see these red flags. Can't leave it. You got 3 days, or 3 plus 20 days. You're not allowed to question, you're not allowed to say things against the Prophet. And, you know, all of these red flags, like when you start to see them, you know, ultimately it's too late. If you're already a Muslim or you're born a Muslim, it's too late, because you can't leave the religion. Thankfully, we live in a country where you are able to leave it, and we're able to talk about it, and we're able to go and say, oh, this is bad. Like, I take advantage of my rights here in Canada to say these things because, well, guess what? In a Muslim country, in a Muslim state, maybe I wouldn't be allowed to say these things, right? I would be one of those people that's causing, what did he say? Causing a riot and like murder. What is he saying? Like, he's so threatened by him, and this system is so threatened by the existence of atheists or even Christians or Buddhists or anyone that's basically questioning the religion, that they have to basically kill the opponents. They have to eliminate the competition. And this is how false systems continue to propagate. They continue to propagate by using like control tactics, by using violence, by using oppression, because a real true system doesn't need to do these things to keep people under it, right? This is what false systems do. This is what cults do. They cut you off, right? They don't allow you to leave. Because if you leave, if you know the truth, you'll cause, they call it fitna, you'll cause corruption. They call it corruption, even though it's actually not corruption. It's freedom, it's truth, it's just whatever you want to follow, right? It's your own destiny. But according to him, this guy and his hilarious arguments about, liberals have nothing, can't say anything because democracy, but it's not even democracy. The Islamic State is not democracy. It's the ruler is not even selected by the masses. It's selected by a select group of people that nobody elected the select group of. It's just ridiculous. The whole system makes no sense. It hasn't been thought out. And the worst part is that people think this is from God. This is not from God. This is a made up nonsense mishmash system that has evolved over the centuries. What we have today is not exactly what the Prophet had. And God knows if he even believed in what he was saying, or if he even thought it would survive past his death, or if he even cared. I mean, I don't think he even cared, to be honest, what happened after he died, right? At the end of the day. And, obviously, when we read the Quran, we see this is a output of a deranged mind. Like, it's clear, right? And don't ignore the red flags. These red flags are your mind telling you, the cognitive dissonance, something is wrong. Run away. Stay far, far away from Islam, because this system is not good for you. It's not good for humanity. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for... It has its benefits for sure, but it comes at a very heavy cost, right? It's a very heavy, demanding, oppressive system. So whatever little benefit you get, it's a deal with the devil at the end of the day. Not that I believe in a literal devil, don't take me literally, but this is a deal with the devil. The small gain you get, this little bit of happiness, comes at a huge cost, right? And I've talked about these costs in some of my other videos. So if you're interested to see what that is, I've talked about the women's rights issues. I've talked about, other things, for example, Islamic finance, how bad it is. So, check out my other videos if you're interested to learn more about why Islam is not a great system. And thank you to my patrons and my channel members for continuing to support the channel and to continuing to donate to keep the lights on. I appreciate all of you. For the rest of you, you need to join the Patreon too. And if you can't, that's okay. Like the video, thumbs up, share it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Leave a comment, get the algorithm going. Thanks for watching. This is your friendly ex-Muslim, Abdullah Samir, signing out.